Well, welcome back, everyone, to our final session of our Johnny's Ambassadors Anti 420 Day Youth Marijuana Prevention Conference. And we have saved an amazing inspirational speaker for you. I want to formally introduce Monty, but let you know that I put him in this spot very purposefully, and you will soon see why. He served his entire professional legal career of 29 years as a state and federal prosecutor. For 24 years, Monty was an assistant United States attorney for the District of Idaho, where he supervised the Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force, which is a group of agents and prosecutors who investigated and prosecuted high-level drug trafficking organizations. During a decade-long investigation of international drug smuggling and money laundering, Monty worked closely with foreign, federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies in the pursuit of evidence and witnesses. He was also a sworn Special Deputy United States Marshal for all of his career. He has an incredible wealth of knowledge and experience and has seen much and is here to share with us some important parting words on why education works. Monty, thank you so much for being one of Johnny's ambassadors.
Laura, thanks so much for inviting me. I was just mentioning to you at the break, I was so happy that you asked me to participate at all, because I know all the speakers you've had all day, and they're the leading experts, and they're all colleagues and friends, and we've had to listen to each other talk many times. So I know that the participants in the conference have heard virtually everything you need to know from the best people.
And
So,
now ending with you and right in that company. So thank you.
so I'm happy to be able to end because I get to talk about the thing that I'm most excited about, which is the positive end of all of this. What do we do with the information we have? How do we motivate people? How do we educate people? And I can go all day and talk about the negative things, but this is really my passion, what I like to talk to adults about, and kids also. So we're going to talk for a little bit today about why education works and how it works well. And hopefully by the end of this time, you will all have some additional ideas on why it is that we do what we do, why it's important, why it is effective when it's done correctly, and how we can do it even better when we are positive and energized by the work we do. As Laura was saying, I spent my entire career doing drug cases, first as a state prosecutor and then a federal prosecutor. And during those 29 years, I saw virtually everything you can imagine bad. Homicide scenes, autopsies, death of children, guns, dope, meth labs, people having to wear bulletproof vests during an LA street gang trial because of threats on my life and my agents. Had an amazing, interesting career, but and I could tell you lots of stories about all that. But about 10 years ago, even though I was too young to retire, a combination of factors caused me to change everything about my life. Even though I was too young to retire, I left the U.S. Attorney's Office in March of 2011 so that I could do drug prevention full time. I had spent my whole life putting people in jail for doing very horrible things that they deserved every bit of it, but I'd done enough of that. And I felt like it was time to share the things I'd learned and teach younger prosecutors and police officers, get involved in drug coalitions, and especially work with youth. So I did a major career change, and that's led me to a lot of places in the United States where I get to talk to large groups of kids and adults and coalitions and conferences like this. I love doing it. When I started doing this, just before I started doing this, I thought a lot about this Mark Twain quote. He said, "The two most important days in your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why." Everyone on the planet has the first part, the day you were born. Most everybody has the second day when you find out why you're here on the planet. If you're blessed like I am, you have the opportunity to find out why you're here on the planet several times, and that changes over time. I know, Laura, you and other people on the panel have had careers that have spanned a lot of different things. And we now find ourselves at this point doing this. This is what I feel like I am supposed to be doing right now. And I know a lot of you probably feel the same. So we've been talking about this all day, and people wonder why we're having this discussion. And you've heard from all the experts. But what I realized quickly when I came out of the U.S. Attorney's Office and started to do drug prevention is that the whole legalization thing had caused decades of effective drug prevention to go in reverse. And I found that kids weren't very likely to listen to adults anymore because they were getting mixed messages from us. And so I realized very quickly that we had to pay attention to a lot of things more so than before. And because if you don't understand the root cause of the problem, you can't fix anything. So as I've gone through 10 years of prevention education with kids, especially, I, like a lot of you, I see this as kind of a cultural tsunami, which is overtaking us. The drug culture, the things, all the things that are not good for kids or adults, either one. And we see that in a lot of different ways. The traditional drugs that we've had for a long time that's highly accepted in society, our children are exposed to those messages. Uh, what college kid doesn't go to college thinking that the highlight of their college career is going to go on spring break? And it's a sad thing because people will look forward to this time and go to the beach and get drunk, fall down, pass out. They don't know what they did the next day. And that's supposed to be the height of their college career. That's a sad thing, in my opinion, but that's the culture we live in. And of course, we have other drugs that are legal for adults. We all know what the tobacco company did to us for decades, how many lives were lost because of that. And now we have emerging drugs that are causing havoc everywhere. And that includes marijuana in all its forms, the new opioids, synthetic opioids that are killing people everywhere. And so all of these things are important. And it's becoming increasingly difficult to talk about this with people because a lot of people, this is the way I see it, a lot of people know things that are simply not true. They know things that aren't true. It's because they've been indoctrinated so much with the other side's message that they believe things that aren't true. And so this is developed into a situation in our nation where we have the products of legalization are two different things. One is a proliferation of a crude street drug in a tremendous variety of forms, way more harmful, dangerous than they used to be. But on the other side, the product is a toxic drug culture where people revel in inebriation and getting high, and the higher you can get. I hate this picture. This was at a Seattle Hemp Fest. These two little guys have their heads stuck in a sign that says "Buds for Life." Now I don't know who those kids belong to, but I wish I did, because that's child abuse in my opinion. But this toxic drug culture in some ways is as dangerous as the drug itself because it leads people into that lifestyle and use even more. And then I'm sure Ben talked a lot about this, the commercialization of THC, and literally that's what the product is. And so we're facing all of these things. We face a society where we have these counterculture icons that we make into multimillionaires, and they're worshiped in some regard, and their lifestyles and the things they say and do and the things that are important to them bleed out into their fan base. And so when you have kids or adults, either one, that see these kind of things, They think, well, if it's good enough for good old Willie, it's okay with us. And it's all about normalization of drug use. And then we have everything from TV, movies, magazines, clothing, social media. The world is, I have thousands of social media posts like this one: don't drink and drive, park and spark. Well, we spent a lot of time teaching people not to drink and drive. So, but now the new thing is to park and spark. That's the cool thing. It's Friday, smoke weed, even use Sesame Street characters to make it not a big deal. My blood type is THC. Now, if there were only a few of these things, it would be one thing, but this is pervasive throughout society. When you can have people show up on the Tonight Show high and they spend the first half hour talking about how much pot they smoked before they came out and everybody laughs, it normalizes drug use. And that's what the other side wants. They want everyone to believe that everybody does it. And that's simply a lie. But that's the normalization. People need to think in terms not so much of legalization, but the normalization of drug use. And that includes all drugs, legal and illegal. So the end result of all of this, many decades of this, and it's been very well planned out, and they've been very successful at it, is today in America, we have a lot of states that have legalized pot and other drugs now. And this is the latest SAMHSA survey. It's a chart I made of all the states in order of their past month marijuana use. If you look at the top, that Vermont is the #1 state. There's 3 different categories there: 12 to 17, 18 to 25, and 26 plus. The red states are recreational states at the time of the survey. Green is medical, and then white is not medical or recreation. Then you got Idaho there. Well, if you look at that, the top half of that chart is pretty much recreational and medical states. And I think this is a good visual aid to show people consequences. And you look at those 2 age categories, 12 to 17, that's our teenagers. If Vermont and Maine, Oregon, Washington, are they any states to emulate? Is their drug policies, is their things they're doing sound like a good idea if they've got double or triple the amount of marijuana use among teenagers? And then, even though we don't think of them this way so much, the 18 and 25-year-olds is a very dangerous age too, because there you're talking about older teenagers, college students, young people entering the workforce, young people, young marrieds, often with young children. And you've got states where 35% of that adult, those people are smoking weed at some point. And we all know the end result of that. There's a lot of things that happen, but one of the things that we know about is brain impairment. When they're high, their brains are not working. So it's becoming increasingly difficult to talk to people about this subject. So I'm going to give you a recipe that I've found to be the most successful way to get people to think about the consequences of what they're voting for. And it's rather than get in an argument, I think this is a way that you can talk to people that will help them hopefully understand why this is important to you and why it should be important to them. And I just ask them to consider the words that they know that are used by marijuana users to describe the state of being high. Not your words, not my words, their words. You could think of hundreds and hundreds of them, but here are a few. Stoned, high, wasted, baked, fried, toasted, burnt, blazed, gone, faded, stupid, wrecked. And those are just the polite ones. There's a lot more. That's literally the point of it. The point of the culture is to get there, and they brag about that. So if you think about those words, and then you consider another set of words that are valued in virtually every community in America, those words would include things like excellent parents, quality education, safe highways, sound judgment, successful employment, all of those things, respect for laws, healthy environment, safe communities, healthy kids and families. Is that not what most people want? Every every normal person I know wants that in their community, and they want that for their family. Now, when you look at those two sets of words together, you have to think to yourself, are those words compatible with each other? Do we get better parents, better education, safer highways when we have more people in that right-hand category? Do we get any of those things in more abundance when we have more people stone blazed, gone, faded, stupid, wrecked? No, we get less of it. But interestingly, the opposite happens. When we have more better parents and better education and respect for laws, we have less of the other and less need for it. So when people are, even the most ardent marijuana advocates, when they're given this idea, they have a hard time arguing that those things are not compatible. They'll try, but it's really hard. And for people that are on the bubble, people you may be trying to convince that it's important, try it out. Have them think about those things. The intent of using marijuana versus things that are important to us in our communities. And if those things are not compatible, then we need to consider whether our public policies, laws, and even constitutions are changed in order to increase the number of people in that state of mind. Is that really what we want to be doing? A lot of states are doing it. The feds are seriously considering it. It is the wrong direction to be going if we care about kids and families and communities. And so the answer to that is, of course not. We should be doing none of that. We should be doing the opposite of that. So understanding that, we have to talk about what our solutions are, what works, what doesn't work. And we have to understand that the biggest obstacles we face in the prevention world, the primary things are ignorance, apathy, and denial. People don't know, they don't care, or they may know, but they just don't want to think about it. And that happens with citizens, it happens with parents, happens with school districts, it happens with Congress people. Ignorance, apathy, denial are our biggest enemies and our biggest obstacles. And we have to be able to overcome that. So we have to think a lot about, how do we wake people up? How do we make them pay attention? And not just pay attention, how do we educate people, then motivate them for change and activate them in helping us make this country a better, safer place? And I think one of the most important things I ever learned from a really good book, I can't remember the exact name, but the thought was, the principle was, that societal change does not occur unless there is a sense of urgency. People have to feel a sense of urgency that something needs to happen, something needs to change. And without that sense of urgency, nothing changes, nothing happens, there's no need for it. But to have a sense of urgency, that requires that people know things that they don't know, but more importantly, they have to understand why knowing those things should make them care. They have to know things, and they have to understand why they should care. And here's some ways that I use to help give people that sense of urgency: facts and an understanding of why they should care. And the key messages that I think most successful coalitions use have something to do with these concepts. I love what Frederick Douglass said: it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men or women. That's as true a statement as anything that's ever been said. Easier to build strong children than repair broken people. And it is easier to defend cities than reclaim them. I strongly believe that my state, Idaho, has made a very good defense. We haven't legalized anything yet, although we fight it every day. It's going to be much easier for us to continue to defend our state than to reclaim it once it goes the way of Portland, Seattle, a lot of other places, Denver. It's easier to defend, and we need to help people understand that. And the third concept is, I think one of the best ways to do drug prevention education is not to talk so much about the drugs themselves, although there's plenty to talk about. From my perspective, I have better luck talking to people about the consequences of choices. That choices have consequences, and point out the reasons why this should be important to them. They need to understand that drug use is not a victimless crime. That is a bald-faced and horrible lie. It's not a victimless crime. People need to understand that drugs impact your ability to make good choices. In other words, drugs impair your judgment, and that is not good for any person, 80 years old or 5 years old. Teenagers, especially, as they're learning and growing and having all these experiences, impaired judgment is the last thing we need them to have. People also need to understand that all of us pay for the poor choices of other people. A lot of times people will say, well, I'm doing it. It's just my body. It's my brain. I'm not hurting anything. That's a lot of nonsense. We all pay for the choices that other people make, even in the privacy of their own homes. And this is especially true with children. You got a guy who goes down, buys $100 worth of Coke, goes down in his basement, snorts up Coke, uses that. That's $100 didn't go to his kids' clothes, food, shelter, any of that stuff. It's time away from his kids. It's messing up his brain. I could not begin to tell you all the stories, and most of you have the same situation, of stories of children that we have known, that we've come into contact with, and the things that have happened to them because of the choices of others. And sadly, a lot of the time, that is their own parents. We need to help our citizens understand that these bad choices consume massive amounts of resources. Think about all the things we have to spend money on because of the bad choices of other people. Think about what we could do with all that money if people made good choices. How many billions, trillions of dollars would we have to build schools and universities and new technology for all kinds of things we could do? But no, we spend a tremendous amount of our resources because some people make very bad choices that cost a lot of money. People need to understand that choices impact the environment. Marijuana grows, meth labs, horrendous impact on the environment. I've been in marijuana grows. I've seen them from helicopters. I've been down on the ground. It is an unbelievably damaging thing to our environment. It kills wildlife. It kills everything. And that's one of the consequences. We know about the physical consequences of drug use, all kinds of bad things. Again, things we have to pay for when we don't take care of our bodies. We understand that choices impact our friends for good or bad. We understand that choices impact families. If you've got chaos going on in your home, divorces, especially when it's substance abuse related, these little ones get impacted by that. And some of them don't come out well on the other end, because the behavior that's modeled is passed on through generations. You've heard today about how choices impact mental health, that it causes, accelerates, exacerbates current mental health problems, creates new ones, terrible, terrible problems. And something that's, just lifelong, endless impact is how it impacts brain development and education, as well as occupational choices. Sometimes choices impact freedom. This young man was 19 years old when he killed two of his friends after driving home high from a party. He lost his freedom. That was a choice. Because of his choices, he lost his freedom. Two other people lost their lives. We know how it has an impact in the workplace. But the bottom line for all of this is that choices impact real people. They're not statistics, they're not headlines, they're real people. This is a real person This is a young lady that my wife and I loved. Her name was Heidi. She grew up in our neighborhood. Everyone loved Heidi. She was smart, happy, talented. She had lots of plans for her life. For some reason, at the age of 17, although she had lived her whole life as a model teenager, some of her friends convinced her that she should try to smoke some weed. And for some reason, she did, and she liked it. And so the next time she was offered that, it wasn't such a big deal. And then more and more. And then one night when she was high on pot and feeling bulletproof, someone showed her a white powder and said, "This is even better." And because her brain wasn't working, she tried that and she liked it. It was cocaine. And later, someone had another kind of white powder called meth, and she really liked meth. And for the next 6 or 7 years, her family, our family, all of her friends and loved ones watched her go down this downward spiral until the age of 26, she died from a massive stroke and heart failure. And I was asked to speak at her funeral by our friends, her parents. And it was one of the hardest things I ever did because this is Heidi. This is Heidi with the sparkly eyes. This is Heidi with the dead eyes. This isn't even the worst she looked. These pictures were given to me by her parents at the end of my talk, at the end of the funeral. And they said, "Monte, we know you and Sandy loved Heidi and she loved you. Will you share her story with others?" And I said, "Yes, I will." And I am. She's a real person. A little girl was born to her while she was addicted to methamphetamine, and that little girl was born addicted to meth. This affects real people, not statistics. So a couple of things that I find are successful in community coalitions around the country.
About
If I
7 more minutes, Monty.
7 more minutes, okay, I'm gonna have to hurry. Number one thing, I get a lot of calls to go to places and talk to kids, speak in a school for an hour. And when people ask me to do that, I say, "Well, what do you want to get accomplished?" And they go, "Well, we want you to come and fix our kids." And so I'll say, "Well, if I come speak to your kids for an hour, will that fix them?" And there's always dead silence. So anyway, the bottom line is when people ask me to go somewhere and talk, I said, "I'm happy to talk to your kids. But you know what? If we don't impact your adults, if we don't get your community stakeholders to understand what's going on, the people that are in charge of policies and laws and budgets, and they don't understand, nothing's going to change." So if I go to come to your school, we're going to have a meeting with your community stakeholders. I think this is a huge key. We can't focus on fix the kids, fix the kids, fix the kids. Because if we try to fix the kids, they resent it if they see adult behavior that's not consistent. So that's a real key. We all know about community coalitions. There's genius behind the 12 sectors. We've got all of these groups that come together and then branch out when it's done correctly. But a lot of coalitions don't work very well because they might have a general idea of what they're doing, but the mission statement is a little fuzzy, and especially in today's age. And then you've got the recruitment, training, giving people a job, giving them something to do so that they feel it's something more than just coming to a meeting once a month and hearing about something somebody else did. Subcommittee action in between meetings where people are expected to do things and then come back that month and report and be accountable for what they got done during the month. And then, of course, retaining people in coalitions is super important. I found the best way to energize adults in community coalitions to get kids involved. And we train and mobilize our youth, powerful things can happen. And I think when we focus on youth and not teach them, preach at them, fix them, we teach them how to be part of the solution. And our brains need to think this way. We need to think youth inspired, youth developed, youth led. When those things happen, magic happens. And I could give you lots of examples. We have a red ribbon rally every year in the state of Idaho at our capital. It's one of the largest in the country. Guess what? Youth help plan that. They help organize it. These three awesome teenagers are standing with a local TV celebrity. Those young ladies put that together, and miracles happen, and it happens every year. But we adults could do it. We could make it all happen, but these guys are magic. We have lots of programs for kids. One of them's Natural High program. Youth inspired, youth led, resulted in posters like this going up in every high school, every middle school in the valley. And they were so popular, people would steal them because it was all about all of the awesome things on the planet that you can do instead of getting high, all the cool things in the world. And this is peers talking to peers. It's not adults lecturing them. It's their own peers talking to them. Now, I think I'm going to run out of time. Nope, I'm going to play this. I had to show that because that is a youth inspired, youth developed, youth led video that kids in our valley thought about. And it's a 30-second promo for a 4-minute video that was used on TV. But it was showing their peers all the awesome things there is to do on the planet. If you want to see it, I can send you the link to the full one. But it's one of the most inspiring examples I've seen of how this works. So to kind of finalize here, to be good at what we do, we all have passion or we wouldn't be talking about this. We all have a great deal of knowledge about problems. Part of our problem is scalability. We have to think bigger. We have to go where people are, to captive audiences. We can't spend more time, 3 months planning a school parent education night at the high school on a Thursday and get 4 parents there. We have to think big. And one of those places where there's a captive audience, churches are often a really good place to go where there's lots of people. And you can get more people going to a church than you can dragging parents to a school. So there's lots of ways to do that in media, certainly one of them. So here's the bottom line. We all have to remember that education works. Why do we know that? We know it because there was a time when snake oil salesmen sold cocaine drops for toothaches. They sold opium for newborns. Doctors and dentists and nurses and all kinds of people caused people to think that tobacco was an awesome thing that didn't hurt anybody. But when we finally got smartened up, we realized that this was killing people and we had to do something about it. And now look what's happened as a result of strong campaigns over the years. We now have a world that I couldn't have imagined in my younger years. I couldn't have imagined there'd be a time on this planet when cigarette smokers would be forced to go outside and huddle together in the rain in order to smoke cigarettes. It was unheard of. It couldn't have been imagined, but that's what happens. That's the kind of change that happens when education happens. And we have lots of examples. Designated drivers, amazing. Recycling, no, I didn't have recycling cans when I was a kid. I didn't even know about it. Now everybody does. Littering, seatbelts, how many lives have been saved? I can't get in my car with my grandkids in the back seat and drive away without my seatbelt because my grandkids will say, Grandpa, what's wrong with you? You have to put your seatbelt in. We've ingrained this in their brains. We've done it successfully. We're doing it with bike helmets, all kinds of helmets to protect brains. Now we're spending more time talking about sports concussions. We've even trained humans to do this. We have the ability to cause human beings to follow animals around in the park with a glove and a scooper and a bag. If we can train humans to do that, we can teach them and educate them about anything. You think about the COVID and the masks right now. How quickly did that come about? Public education, expectations, we know how to do it because education works. So as a final thought, here's the good news. Most people don't use and most kids don't either. Parenting matters. We have to teach them, but show them at the same time. Sober children learn better. Sober parents parent better. Sober drivers drive better. Sober people live better. That's the message we need to get out to everybody because choices have consequences. Now, just in a few minutes, personal story as a little child growing up in Emmett, Idaho on the farm. Like every other kid that I've ever known, we lived in a world full of wonder and awe. That's what childhood should be about. Everything's awesome. You take your mom a dandelion as if it were the most beautiful rose ever created, because that's the world we live in. After 20 years in law enforcement and seeing a lot of bad things, I woke up one day feeling like the world was kind of a bad place. I'd seen so many bad things and it scared me. And so I decided I needed to change my own life to change my perspective because I was going around literally with the weight of the world on my shoulders. So I decided to take up photography. And when I did that, it changed me because instead of going around like this, thinking the world was in a terrible place, scary place, I started to see things that I had not noticed. And not all of them are pretty, but that creature right there built that. That's an amazing thing. A little tiny frog on a giant lily pad, a little fox they found up in the foothills above Boise, twin fawns with their mother, wild mustangs shot from a helicopter in the desert. My son and I track cougars in the winter, and this is what one looks like if you get near its tree. And this is a baby one that I was in a tree with on a New Year's Eve a few years ago. It was magical. The world's full of amazing creatures, but also amazing people. My best friend Al and his first grandchild, my nieces in wildflowers, my grandson Jackson in the bathtub, our granddaughter Mia taking some of her first steps, a little girl who inspired me at a 4th of July rally. I didn't even know her name. The world's full of opportunities and adventures. There's endless things that we can do to have fun. We can travel and see exotic places and learn new things. The world is a beautiful place. And this is the world we live in. This is the Grand Prismatic Springs shot from a helicopter. Little tiny people down there. That thing is huge. It's one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. It was a magical thing to see. And all of those things are on that. And I didn't take that picture. I wish I did. I wish I can someday. But all of those cool people, creatures, things, everything's on that and out in space. There's even more amazing things. Further out you go, further out you go. So here's the bottom line. Years ago, the NASA scientists pointed the Hubble telescope out to a little tiny speck of the universe, a place that was nothing in it as far as they knew. But when the picture started coming back in the deepest, darkest, blackest, most empty part of the known universe, this is what they saw. Thousands of lights. And remarkably, only a few of those are stars. The rest of those lights are galaxies. And those galaxies are filled with billions and trillions of suns, of stars. That's the universe we live in. How could we ever be bored? I think one of the saddest things that I know about people is they live in this universe, in this world that we all exist in, and they have all this around them and available to them, but their world shrinks. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller until this is their universe. This is their world. This is what they think about. This is their culture. This is their friend. This is their social life. It's one of the saddest things I know. One of the greatest blessings we can give to our children and to each other is to go from this to everything in this world that's beautiful and wonderful and wholesome and healthy. That's our mission. That will make education work. It does work. It will work. You are all part of that great mission to help people live better lives by making better choices. God bless you for it. Thank you very much. Miracles will happen. Just keep it up.
And this is exactly why we saved you for the end. I am so inspired to go out and continue to educate, and it does work. And looking at all of those slogans, all of the seat belts and the bike helmets and the dog pooper scooping and all the things that we have successfully taught humans to do, we can teach them not to do things as well, and how dangerous things are. And you know, we just have to continue trying, and that's a great way to end. You do have a couple questions about Idaho. How have you made this successful? We would like an update on how youth have helped curb the marijuana initiatives in Idaho. What has happened with the amendment to the Idaho Constitution? So give us an update on what's been done there.
We've had a decade-long history of success fighting back initiatives. Idaho is one of the few states that hasn't legalized any kind of marijuana, nothing. And I attribute a lot of that to state leaders, but also our prevention people. Lots of people saw this as dangerous in the very beginning. We decided to take a very proactive role and be offensive, to play offense, not defense. Now, continuing to fight the battle year after year gets harder and harder because the opposition has more and more money and their strategies change. And it seems like the whole world is running towards a cliff like lemmings. But one of the most important things that I think we've done, besides just galvanize the support of our leaders, is we've been very proactive. We have avoided the strategy of trying to fight on the enemy's turf. And what I mean by that is it's almost impossible to change people's opinion about the medicinal value of marijuana. And so instead of fighting that battle, we literally take these campaigns and view the candidate that's running for office, the one that's going to be voted on, the initiative, the bill, whatever it is. And we treat that as the candidate, and we go after the candidate, all of its flaws, all of the terrible things, all the language in it that's dumb and causes terrible consequences. But the second part of it is we go after the campaign managers, the messengers. We point out who they are, what their real intentions are, the things they say, the things they intend, the consequences of listening to them. And those two things, I think, have made us the most successful. We have done it that way, and to the extent that this year we had 2/3 of our Senate vote in favor of a constitutional amendment to ban the legalization of drugs forever. And that passed 2/3 in the Senate. It lost by 5 votes in the House. But two other bills passed that will make it much more difficult for groups like the Marijuana Policy Project and others to come in here. And part of our goal was to make Idaho a place that didn't sound like a good place for their investments. And that's been part of our success too, is helping others see that this is not a good place to spend their money. If they want to legalize drugs, go spend it somewhere else. So even though we think about that, though, we got 60% of the legislature to vote for that. We only lost by 5, and we'll try it again. And we're fighting a battle right now on an initiative, but I feel confident that we can win. I think the battle there is you have to stop it at the signature gathering stage. You can't wait till it's on the ballot. And there's ways to do it. We've done it every single time. They've never got it on the ballot because we fought it to keep it from getting enough signatures. So that's one of our things going on right now.
Well, someone commented, I attribute Idaho's success to Monte. He is very humble. Um,
My
so
mom.
lots of, no, not your mom. Thanks, Monty. I love your optimism. This was a great session full of learning. Thank you so much. This was a beautiful ending to a wonderful program. Thank you so much for your hard work. We should all go to Idaho and make a perimeter to help protect it.
Yes.
makes makes me
Your
want to move
stories.
to Idaho.
Your stories will help. And thank you, Laura. You're an all-star. You're a rock star. Thank you, and
Well,
everyone
thank
that
you
participated
so
today.
much for being
Thank
here, for being a new friend, a new partner, and for being one of Johnny's ambassadors. Appreciate it so much.
you.
All
Thank
right,
you.
take care, my friend.